Welcome back to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. The archives and load up some other talks that I've got of these Bob Earll cassettes. I've had them sitting on a hard drive for some time now. I've decided to share them with you all. Let me know what you think. Some people loved Bob. Some people hated Bob. Bob was Bob, but he talked all over the world. I mean, he's from Los Angeles, Beverly Hills area, and did other things. I think he was a writer. Just click down below, like or subscribe, or both, like and subscribe. Just click down below, like and subscribe on my channel. It helps me out. Just a little click for you, doesn't cost you anything, and I'm bringing you some Bob Earll. And have a good day if you want to.
Hi, I'm Bob Earll. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. What an introduction. When you said the tape recorder chewed up the tape, I thought, finally God stepped in and said, I am the power. It's nice to be here in Texas. This is the second time in my life I've ever been here without going to jail. Seems that in the 50s, angry young men from California who used narcotics weren't well liked. Oh, God. Now I'd like to spend 10 minutes on your humidity. Because I like to run, and one of your local residents took me out running this morning around the lake. What's left is here to speak. I feel I'm flattered to be at a basic young people function at 47 years of age. It's so thrilling, you know. It's like... I was telling Joe, I think that's awfully fucking boring. What he read, they should rewrite that. I think the aims of the young people are a little more exciting than that, for Christ's sake. At least they were, yeah. And it's amazing, you know. Just to take a minute on that, I remember it took us in about 5 years of letter writing and screaming and yelling and phone calls to get the original Young People in AA pamphlet rewritten. Okay? Years, and I'm talking a concentrated effort made by an awful lot of us to get it rewritten, including sending off sample new stories. Like, wouldn't you like this better? You know, than what you got? Isn't this more appropriate to now than what you got? And again, it's outdated again. But the fact that it took so long is interesting to me today in relation to personal recovery, because it shows the resistance to change. Okay? I find that fascinating that there is such a staggering resistance to change in AA, both at a business level and at a personal level, when they say to us, what you're going to do here is live a spiritual life. Okay? Now, go talk to a theologian. Go talk to one well-skilled in spiritual matters. Talk to a metaphysician, and they will tell you that the one permanent thing in a spiritual life is change. The one constant thing is change. The one necessary thing is spontaneity. When was the last time you were spontaneous? It's like today, you know. It's like I've been clean and sober a little over 20 years, and today, if somebody said to me, walked up and said, "Okay, what is the alcoholic's number one problem?" And I would say, if the alcoholic isn't in the process of consuming chemicals, his number one problem is self-esteem. We have no self-worth. I'm talking about me, and I'm talking about you, because you are confessed alcoholics, and I haven't met one yet in Southern California who has any without going through an awful lot of work to get it. And it seems that it's like one of the things that put me in touch with that in my own life was the destructive behavior after I got clean and sober. Hey, forget drinking and using, okay? You know, I mean, I heard a great line the other day. Somebody was talking and he said, you know, in some cultures, the body is considered a temple. And in America, it's considered a trash compactor. Yeah. And it's like, it's true, you know, and we do it, and that's what's kind of sad, because if you stop and think for a minute, the thing that blows me away is we go through years of drug addiction and alcoholism, right? I mean, we're sick, we're nuts, they put us in padded cells, they put us in little paper slippers, we spend weeks walking up and down hallways and, you know, just totally fucking gone on Thorazine, right? I mean, we put diapers on us because they overdose us on Thorazine. I mean, you know, we live this fun life. We're stabbed by friends, gunned down by the police department in the streets. We have a basic good 11 years, 12-year run at it out there. Then we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and we have, in essence, we have literally been risen from the fucking ashes, and now what do? We drink 77 cups of coffee a day. We smoke 12 packs a day. You know. It's that need to be prepared, you know. If you're into true spirituality, the very basic motto of the Boy Scouts is negative. Be prepared. For what? You know, I was raised with that bullshit. It's going to get bleak soon, so be ready. So I spent all my time getting ready for I don't even know what or why. It's the thing I've discovered by my own experience in sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous is God is absolutely incredible in that you can surrender your entire will and life out of pain when most of us do, when you've tried everything else and you become willing to let go, and you turn to God, you can let it go. You can have a surrender at such a level of emotional and physical pain that you really just give up. You don't care what comes tomorrow. It is so unimportant that it doesn't goddamn matter. You're not even thrilled with the prospect of waking up. It's just, let it come. It's okay. If I have to wash dishes the rest of my life and sleep in a small room and that's it, that's okay. Whatever you want, I'm through. I quit. It's over. And you can surrender at that level in yourself, and God, being the wondrous Father that He is, will immediately begin slowly, methodically, surely, precisely to provide you with all the wondrous things. Now, and I know that's true because He did it for me in my life. The thing that's fascinating me is if you don't keep up your own personal growth with this new flow of stuff, you'll fuck it up. See? Because you sit around and you don't think you have any right to it. And you don't think you deserve it. You may not consciously think this, but you will sabotage yourself. One of the ways is spend every nickel you earn. I'm great at that one. That one was, you know, just a lot of money. Take 10 people to dinner, you know, and I'm in therapy now. I've been in therapy for 3 years. We'll get to that. We'll spend some time on that. And I was telling my therapist one day about, I was bitching and moaning about the money I'd earned that I don't have. And she was having me run down a little bit of what I'd done with it. And I had talked about being a really good sponsor and taking 10, 12, 14 babies to dinner, you know, 2-3 nights a week, right? And picking up the check like the granddaddy, you know. And I said I always viewed it as breaking bread with my brothers, you know, and sharing spiritually of what I had found. And she said that, or someone who doesn't want to eat alone, you know. I just laid there quietly for a while and didn't say a lot. This is great. I like being here. I feel really good. I've had a good time, by the way, in Dallas so far. You got some very nice people here. Really nice people. I've enjoyed it all. There's one blonde I can't find. I'm looking for in the mall down there. She got away from me, but other than that, it's been a great trip. Yeah, so I'll give it all up, Robert. Why don't you jerk? if you have heard, oh, I talk to myself all the time. It's the only entertainment I have. If you have ever heard me talk, and you've heard me talk about committee and the voices that you are blessed with when you get sober, because you kept them pretty deadened with alcohol and drugs before you get here, they get very loud with each year of sobriety. You get more voices, and they get louder and more destructive, and you spend more time listening, you know, and less time living, just sitting, thinking, you know, working it out. And I'm delighted to report that now, as I stand here, and it doesn't have to take you this long, I'm down to 4 voices. And I got to tell you, that's a relief. It really is. From the 12 or 13, you know. I don't know if anybody's ever heard me talk about holding a meeting at home alone, but I've done that. And I've put the chairs in a circle, and I've moved from chair to chair. And had a discussion meeting and passed the big book around, wound up in a fierce argument with myself, you know, which taught me not to take myself too serious from that point on. And to be to just 4 simple voices is really a delight. And they're very basic, I discovered, in all human beings, not just us. There is a small child, a small, very delicate, very fragile child that lives inside of me. And he has a voice. And then there is the adolescent, pain in the ass. It's bitch being 47 years old and behaving like an adolescent, you know. I mean, I went out 3 years ago and I bought the adolescent a Corvette, and some of the bitches run my insurance into a signed risk, you know. So many tickets I can't see straight. When Kalinga went down in the earthquake, I was thrilled. I paid a $150 speeding ticket in that goddamn town, you know. I thought, see, fuck with one of God's kids, huh? Yeah. Not at all the spiritual message I had planned. No. And then there's the adult, who is an interesting person. I don't know him well. I'm getting to know him better each day. He's a quiet, very gentle soul, a very caring person. Responsible person, and that's a thrill to finally start to grow up a little bit after all these years. And then there is still that one last remaining negative screamer, right? Who sees only the bad in everything. And quitting anything is success to that voice. I think it's the same basic voice that tries to destroy us when we get here. Because if you're like I am, when you arrived at Alcoholics Anonymous, you did not embrace this program with open arms. You did not sit like I came to my first AA meeting and I was 135 pounds. Okay, I weigh 180 now, so you can guess what I look like at 135. I mean, I'm like that big around. And I was about 3/4 dead. I had only the clothes I had on my back, and they take me to an AA meeting, they sit me in a chair. I've been living outdoors for months, right, sleeping on rooftops. They sit me in a chair at my very first AA meeting. I look around the room at this group of people, and my mind says to me, well, you sunk to the bottom this time. Okay? I've been peeing in my pants, sitting in doorways. I mean, I was a thrilling human being. And here I am, and here's my mind. The first shot is, look at this, man. This is really the end of the road. The exact attitude, the end of the road. The fun is over. You know. And I've since discovered that in the subtlety of that statement is a very dangerous premise. Okay? Because, pardon me, we have available to us in Alcoholics Anonymous the tools necessary to create the most incredible life imaginable. You can have things you're not even capable of dreaming of at the moment. They can come to you with the basic application of this program in your life. All right? That's what's available to us here. We have that. We have been blessed. We have been given that. Okay? Yet what the mind has said to us, which is this is the end of the road, the fun is over, how much effort are you going to put into the end of the road? How much energy are you going to put into the ball game is over? You know, how much? It's like a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, a beautiful gal, a gal I absolutely adored. I've known her for 17 years, just died about 2 weeks ago from cancer. And she'd had it for about a year or so. And I watched a lot of the self-destruction. I watched her keep smoking after they said it's probably not a good idea. And she couldn't stop that, but she knew one thing that she shared at meetings. And every meeting she went to, as a speaker in Southern California, she said, look, she'd hold up the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she'd say, if I was in a group right now at the hospital with other cancer patients, and I said to them, contained within the pages of this book is the solution to your disease and the guarantee of an incredible life, I think they'd read it. And I think that they would apply those principles to their life. And I listened to her say that, and I thought, God, how true it is, and how we sabotage ourselves. See, the thing is, I don't know about you, but I was great on blaming them. I didn't even know who the hell they were, right? But I was looking for them for years. You know, if I can just find those mothers, I'm going to get it straight once and for all, and I'm going to be okay, but I got to find them first, whoever the hell they are. And I looked, and it was always them, or it was her, or it was him, or it was this institution, or that psycho ward, or that group of psychiatrists. It was always somebody, and we don't, most of the people I know don't drop that attitude when they come into Alcoholics Anonymous. We're still sitting around now, we're still blaming them on one hand, and on the other hand, we're waiting for him, or her, or them to fix it. All right? So, we're looking everywhere but here. Now I want to drop a real bummer on you. The only enemy you have in the whole world is you. Okay? Ain't nobody gonna fuck over you like you will, pardon the expression. I mean, you will do to you what no one would dare dreaming of doing to you. Your worst enemy would not say to you what you say to you. Because you know he knows you would kill him. You would have no choice but to kill him. You'd have to kill him if he said to you what you say to yourself. If he kept pushing you down like you pushed yourself down. And the only solution to all this is also yourself. See? And the application of these principles. Now that I've dropped that balloon, how do you drop a balloon? I will tell you how I've come to these conclusions. The first 2 years in sobriety weren't bad. I was pretty sick, and I think the sicker and crazier you are when you arrive, the easier the first few months are. Because you can just kind of be led around by the hand, you know? You don't care, you know. You don't know what's a good group and a bad group, you know. You don't know who's a good AA and a bad AA. You know, you don't know good coffee from bad coffee, decaf from regular, you don't know nothing. Just, you know, they say, sit there, you say, yeah, sure, shit. Sit down, you know. Move that chair, sure, well, okay, yeah, here, right? You know, I mean, here's a mop. Oh, yeah, I know that. You know. Meet me such and such a corner, such and such a time. You have so little self-worth, you're there a half hour early, you know, waiting in the rain for somebody to begin. It's like you don't care. It's like you just kind of go along because you're just so beaten down it doesn't matter anymore. And then you begin to get a little recovery. You know, a few months come and a few more months come, and you start to think. See? Start thinking about sobriety and whether or not it's a good deal, about your job, about the old lady or the absence of one, or the old man or the absence of one, or whatever it is, you just get into thinking, see? And now, at this point in your sobriety, if you have a good sponsor, he's going to get you active. Okay? He's going to hurl you into activity until you're so busy, you don't have time to think. See? They wear you out. You'll be carrying panels to 3 different institutions, making coffee at one meeting, treasurer of another meeting, setting up or taking down chairs at another goddamn meeting, hauling 7 guys you don't like at all to meetings. I mean, guys that you would have taken for every goddamn dime they ever saw if you'd had them on the street. Now you got to pick them up and chauffeur them to AA meetings, you know. So they get you busy doing all this, and once again, you're okay, see, because you're active, you've got nothing to do. And I mean, it's great. I believe in it. I think activity is wonderful, and don't sit around and wait till you want to do it, because I have not met anybody close to me in sobriety who ever wanted to do a goddamn thing for another human being. Yeah. And they did everything they ever did in AA with resentments. I used to go into these institutions, some of them in California would drive 200-300 miles to get to the goddamn penitentiary. I mean, you're so mad when you get there. Well, I was so mad, I didn't care. I used to open meetings with lines like, I don't give a fuck if you ever get out of here. I'm here because my sponsor told me if I don't come here, I may wind up living here again, and I don't want to live here again, so I'm here, and the speaker I brought is George, and I'd sit down. I drove 300 miles to bless him, give him that one, and get out of there. I didn't want to do it. I hated every minute of it, and I'll just share one piece of sobriety because a lot of you may have to go through this. One of my sponsors, understanding the total scope of my insanity, and he knowing how neurotics are about disease, gave me a panel in County Hospital. Okay? Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Los Angeles County Hospital, but if you haven't, try not to make it. Even on a panel, try not to make it. No, I shouldn't say that. And I go to this hospital, I don't know what the hell to expect, right? And you go all meet in a room, and it's a huge hospital. And they give you a book, and the book covers 1 or 2 floors. And in it is the patient's name, room number, and bed number, and he is there directly or indirectly as a result of alcoholism. Directly means he's got cirrhosis of the liver, pancreatitis, something like that. Indirectly means he fell down and broke his leg or his arm. That's how the doctors viewed directly and indirectly. And all what you're supposed to do is take a big handful of literature, you walk in the room, you introduce yourself, shake their hand, give them a little literature and talk to them about AA, right? So I figure, okay, I can do this. And I get my little package of literature, I get my little book, I'm about a year and a half sober, and off down the hall I go, and I'm looking for Max, right? I'll never forget Max as long as I live. You're going to be able to ask me about Max when I'm 90, and I'll remember Max. I find the room, and I find the bed, and I walk up to Max, and here lays Max in the bed, okay? Now, Max is a typical Skid Row, L.A. wino, all right? Guy's probably lived outdoors for 35 years, had his last bath about 5 years ago, has open festering sores over 60% of his body, and he's laying there digging at them. Huh? This is Max. Now I'm looking at Max, and I don't want to shake hands with Max. You know what I mean? See? I mean, God bless him, he's my sick, suffering brother and all that, but I don't want to shake hands with Max, And yet, booming in my head, my sponsor's voice is saying, on any given occasion, you may be the only example of Alcoholics Anonymous that a man meets, and you better be the best goddamn example you know how to be. I say, oh, God. Hi, Max, I'm Bob, an alcoholic. I stick my hand out, right? Max, hi, how are you? From now, I'm holding my arm out like this, I don't want it to touch my body, see, because I got to take the body home and wear the clothes home, So I'm talking to Max, telling him about AA, giving him a little literature. I leave the room, go straight down the hall, and hit the men's room and screw the soap for the general public. I go right past it to the surgical soap, wash thoroughly, leave, and go find the next one, right? I used to do that. I used to wash my hands 30 times a night, right? I mean, I used to walk down the halls just dripping wet with perspiration from the agony of carrying this panel in this hospital. I'd get in my car at night in the parking lot, and I wouldn't want to touch the steering wheel because I think, I got to get up in the morning to drive this car, And I've got 17 diseases, right? My mind has a tendency to exaggerate. It likes to exaggerate anything that can limit my scope of movement. That one will set in. Oh, wait a minute. But you go anyway, and I went anyway, and I took my panels anyway, and then one day I learned that I could go out and go to a movie. And I went to a movie, and nothing happened. Bad. And I was thrilled. So the following weekend I took a girl to the movie, and nothing bad happened, and I was thrilled. And so now it's like, oh, it's a whole new life. A little AA and a little of something going on out here, on the side. And that was terrific, except I was running into a small problem. I felt awful alone. And I was in a lot of pain. I didn't understand why. It wasn't real severe. It was just like an ache, This is about 2 years now. And I'm going to run this on you chronologically so you can find out what you can cut out if you want to, or what's waiting for you if you choose to do it my way, In about 2 years, I was thinking, I'd like to get to this God. I'd really like to surrender, But I had no zero formal religious training, okay? Absolutely none. So I didn't have a Catholic God or, a fundamentalist Christian God or a Protestant God. I didn't have any concept of God at all, I thought. So every time anybody in an AA meeting would say, you got to turn it over to God as you understand Him, I would picture this old man sitting in a throne in the sky with a book, keeping score. Okay? Now, if you've been a good, raging, drug addict, alcoholic, you have a sense of distance between you and a score-keeping God. It's like something says, I don't think I'd surrender just yet, You're probably not even. He's probably still waiting for you to clean it up a little more, And I thought, okay, I could accept that. That made good sense to me. I spent a lot of the first 2.5 years of sobriety working hard to clean it up, to do penance. Although everybody says you don't have to. You were forgiven right this moment. But I didn't believe that, see, because I couldn't forgive myself. So about 2.5 years sober, I'm getting nuts, okay? Because I'm going to AA meetings, and people have problems like mine, and a guy would get up, a speaker, and he would be charming, and he'd say, it was a bad morning this morning. My wife served me with divorce papers, and they repossessed my car, and my business is on the brink of bankruptcy. At noon, I turned it all over. I decided I no longer could. I no longer could cope with this, so I surrendered it to God. And here I am at 8:45, pleased to tell you that got a new contract and the business is fine, and the wife changed her mind, and I have my car back. And he'd smile and sit down. And I'd be sitting there thinking, boy, I could sure use somebody like that, It is getting so hard out here alone, It's just, Jesus, I can't work it out anymore. I'm getting so tired of working it out. And I go home from the meeting with renewed enthusiasm to pray. It's like, okay, I'll get to it. And I get home and close the door and cover the drapes. You never want to be seen, because my sponsor said, you must pray on your knees. Something to do with my basic charming attitude. And I would get everything just right. I'd get in my bedroom, I'd get down on my knees and fold my hands, and I'd bow on my head. And this voice from my mind would say, forget it. God doesn't want anything to do with you. He only works for the good guys, and you ain't one of the good guys, so forget it. I go, okay, guys, screw it. I just go ahead and forget it. And one night I went to a meeting. Now, an interesting thing has happened in the last few months. I've talked to a few other people who were at this meeting on this night, who are still around. And they have since told me, I am the only one who remembers hearing this story at the meeting. No one else heard it. It's okay, because it changed my life, for good, so maybe I was the only one who heard it. I swear to God the speaker told the story. I wish I could find the speaker. None of us can remember who the hell the speaker was. I'd love to ask him if he told the story. But it's a story about two guys drinking in a bar in Alaska. And one is an atheist and the other is a very religious man. And eventually their conversation swings around to God. And the atheist looks at this religious man. He says, hey, I don't believe in your God. And the religious man says, why not? And the atheist said, well, I gave your God a chance to prove himself to me once, and he didn't do it. Religious man says, in what manner did you give God a chance to prove himself? Atheist said, well, about 6 months ago I was lost about 150 miles north of town in a blizzard. And I knelt down in the snow and I looked at the sky and I screamed, God, if there is one, I'm lost and I'm going to die. The religious man looks at him, smiles a very knowing smile. He says, why, you must believe. You're here. Atheist said, nah, some goddamn Eskimo came along, showed me the way back to town. Well, I'm sitting in this meeting, and that's like music to my ears, see? Because the one thing, I had a sponsor who was a total maniac. I mean, this is a guy who spent 3/4 of his life in penitentiaries, ran every penitentiary he was ever in. It never took less than 7 guys to subdue him. I mean, he was certified fruitcake, homicidal. I mean, he was last time was 15 years for killing a couple of cops. I mean, just totally berserk. And the only time he would ever talk gentle to me would be, he'd say, I'm trying to explain something to you. He'd say, the kingdom of heaven is inside of you. It ain't out there. Quit looking out there. Look within. God resides within you. Well, I can't accept that, for Christ's sakes. You know, my basic opinion of myself is a turd, right? I feel like a turd. So, I have never read anywhere that God resides inside turds, so it's not too conceivable that he's close to home, you know. But I'm sitting listening to this guy tell this Eskimo story, and I think, my God, that's how I got to AA. I mean, I never even called AA. I'm laying in the doorways dying. I lied to a judge to beat a rap, told him I was going to AA. I never could make the call. I mean, I wasn't the personality. I took an ad out of the Pasadena paper and a dime, man, I hung on to that dime all my life. I must have taken it to a payphone 50 times. And I never could make the call because I'm not from a way of life that you ask anybody for anything under any circumstances. If you don't have it and you want it, you take it, but you don't ask for it. And I couldn't drop a dime and call somebody I didn't know somewhere and say, I need help. Well, God understands our weaknesses, and so some guy walks by the doorway I'm living in and says, who knows me and owes me money, right? And says, come stay with me. Well, I can go with him because it's his duty to take me. You know, he owes me. It's the code, man. He takes me home. I'm telling him someday I'm going to call AA, and he says, there's a girl down the hall goes to AA. It was inconceivable to me that girls went to AA. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to see what the hell one looked like. You know, they went to AA. I went down the hall to see what one looked like. You know, I don't know if I should. I'll tell the story. What the hell? God loves me. I knock on the door, and the girl that opened this door is incredible. She's big enough to break every bone in my body. She stood about 6'2", 6'3", weighed about 235 pounds. She had short black hair, built like a fullback, tattoos all the way down both arms and both legs, standing there with a half-full pint of booze in her hand. This is my introduction to AA, guys. My first introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous, and then we run around saying, be careful what you say to the newcomers, right? Where the hell do you think the newcomer's coming from, for Christ's sakes? You know what I mean? I looked at her, you know, and it was perfect for me, because if she had been some darling little damsel standing there in lace, I would have lied. I would have lied without even thinking about it. It would have been as automatic as pushing a button. I would have said, oh, I happen to be spending some time with a friend down the hall. I have a father who is a victim of the disease of alcoholism. I understand you might be in possession of some information that would aid me in treating my poor sick father. You know, I would run some bullshit. Here was this, I was street people, man. I can talk to her. You know, I said, hey, I'm curious about this AA thing. She stood there and looked at me, holding this booze. Said, AA will work if you want it, and I am not ready to quit drinking. Made sense to me. That was a perfectly acceptable statement to me. I took one look at her, and I said to myself, if I was a big tough broad, I wouldn't give it up either. You know, I wouldn't have quit. If I'd had her size and stamina, I wouldn't have quit for 3 seconds, you know, but I was skinny, burned out, crippled, bent over, basically half dead, you know. I wasn't quitting out of some goddamn desire to have a better life. I was sitting out there dying in the outdoors, you know, and she felt responsibility for the sobriety she had, so she took me to an AA meeting 20 years ago, August 28, 1962. Been here ever since. That's my introduction. That's my introduction. So I understood Eskimos, right? I hear the story. I think, yeah, I got it. I figured it out. If the kingdom was in me, it's always dangerous, so I think I got that one too. But this time I was right. If the kingdom is in me, the kingdom is in everybody. And if the kingdom is in everybody, then the only instrument God has to work with is people. Okay? And I can accept that. So I go home, man, to my apartment, and I'm wired. You know, I feel really good. I've got the secret. God damn it, it's all right. I figured it out. God's going to work through people. If I just pay attention to the people being put in front of me, my life's going to be okay. I sit down in a chair, and my mind says to me, all that's well and good. Except there are 3 areas of your life God is not interested in. And like a jerk, I said, what are they? I literally, most of the time today, will only ask my mind one question. When it begins to speak to me, I will say to it, what is your source of information? It's amazing what it thinks it knows based on nothing. On Zippo, right? Thinks it's a physicist on the 10th grade education, you know? Likes to get in conversations about it and embarrass me. So I say to my mind, what are they? Right? And what happened, what follows is just fascinating because it shows total absence of self-esteem that I would go for this bullshit in the first place. My mind says to me, well, the first thing God isn't interested in is money. Any idiot knows that God and money are not synonymous. You've seen enough Christian TV shows to know that poverty is definitely part of what you should have if you're going to believe. So I go, okay, that's all right, I can accept that, that's okay. I can accept that he's not interested in money. What else? Employment. God does not care where you work or what you do. I thought of that for a minute. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you know, if you think of the world problems going on and everything that's happening and the really big things that need to be taken care of, what the hell does God care what you do for a living or where you work? So I could accept that. That made good sense to me. So what else? He said relationships. God doesn't care who you date. Just, you know, keep it clean and try and be honest and be fair. And I thought about that for a minute. I thought, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I can accept that. God doesn't care about that. Now, what has transpired in this very short minute in my living room is incredible. Because in the 20 years that I've been sober, any time I've had a middle of the night phone call, now I'm talking about a 2 or 3 a.m. phone call, okay? From a friend or somebody I'm sponsoring, from a guy maybe who has throughout his life taken 17 bullets in major shootouts, who has run penitentiaries, who has, you know, rafted rivers, lived from airplanes with no parachute, been blown half apart with a hand grenade in his teeth in Vietnam, from wherever it was, right? You know, however much supposed strength that he once had, whenever I've gotten a middle of the night phone call from one of these tough guys who are going to do this sucker the right way, like I once was going to do it, and they were in tears, right? Sobbing, screaming, the pain is so great they can't stand it. Probably drug themselves across the carpeting in the living room, dragging themselves by their fingernails in emotional pain to get to the phone, right? The source of this problem has always been one of 3 things. Money, employment, or relationships. The very 3 things, my head just said to me, God will take care of everything else, you deal with these. I spent the next 1.5 years or so of my sobriety armed with that conviction. God was keeping me clean and sober. I knew I wasn't doing it. He worked through people. He put the right people in front of me to make good things happen. But in the interim, I was responsible for the money, the employment, and my relationships. Okay? A year and a half later, I'm approaching my 4th birthday in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have just gone financially bankrupt through the courts, handling the money. I do not have a car because it went in the bankruptcy. I'm working in a car wash for $1.25 an hour. I started at $1.35. I'm handling the employment area of my life. And I have not had a relationship with a lady in so long. The pain is so great, I can't even get anybody to go to coffee with me. You know what I mean? There's a point you pass beyond where they ain't going for it. You know, I can see the look in your eyes and do not believe that you want to discuss the 3rd step over coffee. So because I've done so well, this is the status of my life as I roll on to my 4th birthday. My friends are saying to me, well, you know, you got to take a cake. And I said, no, man, I'm not going to take a cake. What the hell am I here to tell a newcomer, for Christ's sakes? You know, come in here for 4 years, hang on, suffer, cry, die, bust your ass, and wind up, you know, flat broke, working for $1.25 an hour without an automobile and a car wash, sleeping on a couch in a guy's apartment you don't even particularly like, but it's 2 doors away from the car wash so you can walk to work, and not have, you know, haven't been late in so long, you're so horny, you know. You think a newcomer's going to come back? You know, right? Now, he ain't coming back. I mean, for Christ's sake, central office would call me with 12-step calls, and I had conditions. The guy had to have a car. He had to be sober enough to drive the car to pick me up so I could take him to the meeting, you know. This is 4 years clean and sober, right? Pure success story. Just flowing along. An Eskimo drove through the car wash. God bless him and said, what are you doing working here? I was the only one in the car wash spoke English. One child was lonely as hell, you know. And I said, I don't know. You know, that was the only answer I could give the guy, man. I don't know. I said, I don't know. I'm just here. He said, look, I can give you a job 3 blocks from here, pays 50 cents an hour more than you're making here at least. And I said, I'll take it. You know, I don't care what it is, I'll take it. Now, I want you to understand my mental state when I took this job. I usually don't take the time to describe this job. And I have been lately, and a few people have thanked me for it. I'm going to this die casting shop, and what they're going to teach me to do is be a trim press operator. Okay, now I'm 30 years old, going on 31, 4 years sober. Now, a trim press operator has a very difficult job. The guy at the other end of this long conveyor belt or table is a die caster, and he's making things in a big die casting machine with molten metal, whether it's wheels for cars or ashtrays for airplanes or doorknobs for car handles, you know, whatever it is, that's what's being made in die casting shop, fired under pressure into these dies. Now, when it's made in this die, it has a lot of unnecessary metal on it that doesn't belong. It's just flared out and die. And it all comes down to you in this box. Okay, now, you have this big hydraulic press in front of you. You reach in this box and you take out a whatever it is, automobile wheel or car handle or whatever, and you set that sucker down in here. Then you have 2 big buttons that must be pushed with both hands so you can't injure yourself. You push these 2 big buttons with both hands and this machine comes crashing down and slams off, cuts off all the unnecessary metal, trims it to its perfect size. It goes back up, you reach in, you take it out, and you put it in this box over here. That's it. Okay? And you get another one. That's it. Guy showed me that, I stood there grateful. Grateful. I said, thank God. You know, I can do this. It's all right. I don't have to, you know. I did learn how to smoke, though. I hit the button with one hand and one knee. Can't stop me from killing myself. after I'd been there for a while, they taught me to be a die caster, and I did that. But I was uncomfortable. I'm rolling into my 5th year, and I don't feel good, and I'm angry a lot, and I'm tense a lot, and I got back aches and neck aches and shoulder aches, and I feel this burning hot knife in between my shoulder blades a lot, and I don't like anybody where I work, right? Nobody. And finally one day I chased a guy from one end of this plant, which is about 1.5 blocks long, to the other with a piece of pipe because I wanted to discuss an error he just made with And when I finally got him back against this goddamn sheet metal building in the corner, I'm staring and thinking, what's wrong, man? What kind of goddamn petty bullshit behavior is this? So I went to talk to a lady I know, an Al-Anon, only because she gives much better answers than her husband, who is a giant AA speaker, but she's much better. Only because I don't have time to listen to his... I love him, but he just talks too long. And when I'm in pain, I don't have time to hear about how the goddamn deer belong to him, you know. So I go to Elsa, I say, Elsa, man, what can I do? You know, I'm going nuts. I'm killing people on this job. You know, I'm ready to open some guy's head up just because he made a small mistake with the way he puts a die in the machine, and I happen to get shot in the ass with a little hot metal. No big deal. He wasn't lethal, you know. So she says, well, why don't you try going to work for God instead of man? I love these short answers. I said, well, how do you go to work for God? What do you mean by go to work for God? She said, simple. What would God expect from you in an area of employment? Show up on time, treat everyone like you would like to be treated, expect nothing in return for what you do, not even a paycheck. Yeah, right? So I decided I'm game. You know, I was in so much pain, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And I went back to that goddamn job at that die casting plant, and I started showing up every morning. I was there on time, and I would greet these guys, good morning, hi, how are you? Because I couldn't talk to these guys, you know. I couldn't even talk to these goddamn guys in the break, you know. I mean, they were all into their rotten boats and water skiing and fishing and a lot, 10 tons of camping bullshit. I mean, I grew up in the city, you know. You get me past neon and asphalt, and I'm already nervous, you know. Fucking crickets start, and I'm crazy, you know. So I'm trying to get interested in boating and weekending in the camper and camping, and I'm listening to them tell stories about their family, and I'm trying to pay attention, and I'm being kind to them. And I got one day I didn't show up. I was running one of the machines, the only machine in the shop making wheels for cars. I was 3 hours late. I was sick, overslept, and didn't know it, and nobody knew I hadn't showed up. That's a miracle. Nobody knew. The biggest machine in the shop wasn't running. Nobody knew it because I had become so quiet and so courteous and so polite and so efficient that they didn't know I wasn't there. And the guy, the trim press operator, wasn't going to tell them, you know. He was hanging out under the table smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, you know. He had nothing. Oh, I thought he was here. Sure, I didn't know. And the job got a little better, and I got a little more responsible with money. I learned how to pay everything I owed weekly with money orders because I couldn't have checks. I've always had the philosophy that if you have checks, you have money. I've had bankers call me in to explain the theory of banking to me. How the money is to be put in first. You know, I mean, I went to prison, for Christ's sakes, for $35,000 worth of payroll checks. You know, I like checks. I mean, I liked armed robbery too, but checks were great. You know, if you weren't into an adrenaline rush for the evening, checks were nice. You know, they were quiet. So I learned how to pay my bills weekly, and everything's going along okay, except I go home one night about 2 months before my 5th AA birthday. And I've given all this to you chronologically for a very good reason. We spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of concentration in Alcoholics Anonymous saying, the most important person in this room is the newcomer. The single most important person in this auditorium is the newcomer. The single most important person at this convention is the newcomer, right? Okay, I guess if you view AA as a furnace, okay, needing coals to keep the fire going, I suppose then that philosophy is correct. But I'm now of the belief that, I mean, you can take me out and shoot me behind this one because I won't get off of this one. The single most important person in this room sits in your chair. There is nobody more important in this room than you are. And the reason I say that, right on, clap for yourself. That's right. The reason I say that, we get so involved in activity and so goddamn busy concentrating on the newcomer that we lose sight of the fact that very few people take cakes for 6, 7, and 8. That we've got a dropout rate between 6, 7, and 8 years of sobriety that is absolutely terrifying. Just terrifying. Go to meetings. I have been to meetings, I have spoken at groups where they have given 31 cakes, and one was for 6 years, none for 7, and none for 8. You mean to tell me that suddenly everybody just didn't show up to take their cake? You know? And the dropout reason is for a very excellent, there's a good cause for that. It seems that about 3 years of sobriety, maybe sooner, this is just my experience, the feelings that you have been trying to stuff all your life start coming back. And you're sitting around, and suddenly you're sitting there, and you're more of a lunatic than you were when you were new. And you got more pain than you had when you were new, and you're more afraid than you were when you were new, and your relationships are screwier than they were when you were new, and you just basically are figuring you're a candidate for the funny farm, you know, and you're trying to figure out why. Jesus, I've worked the steps, I've gone to meetings, I've talked to newcomers, I've read the book, I've written inventories, what the hell's wrong with me? And so as I was 2 months away from my 5th birthday, although I had learned to function on the job well, I was sitting in my apartment one night alone, man, just sitting there quietly, and I wanted to die. All I wanted to do was die. The thought of killing myself would have been a step up in the depression, okay? The thought of any physical action would have been a step up. I just wanted to sit there, quit breathing, and die. I could not go on one more day. It was over for me. And I didn't even know why it was over. I just knew I couldn't take any more. I didn't even know what I couldn't even take any more of. I just knew I was finished. I had done it as good as I knew how to do it. I had worked the program to the best of my ability. I had helped as many people as I knew how to help. I had driven as many goddamn miles as anybody else to institutions, and I wanted to die. And one of the big problems I always had with God was prayer. See, I was one of these people that somehow believed that you had to have the right words. That if you could phrase in the proper metaphysical terminology the prayer, God would help. But if you didn't know the proper words, he probably wouldn't hear, right? So this night, sitting on this bed in my apartment, wanting to die, 4 years and 10 months sober, I looked at the ceiling in my room and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I said, if you're not there, I'm fucked. Told that in the Pentecostal church once and lost a lot of listeners. Couldn't understand why. And I went to sleep. That was it. I just went to sleep. Because the only thing I knew, if there was no God and he couldn't do it, it was over for this kid. I was done. I didn't know how I was done, but I was done. I went to work the next day. and I had to put a new die in the machine, and I took a brand new Allen head wrench, okay, and a brand new Allen head bolt, and for anybody that doesn't know what they are a perfect fit. They just fit solid. I put this new wrench in this new bolt, turned it, it slipped. I went backwards against one of the furnaces, crushed 2 vertebrae in my back, and I was taken to the emergency hospital. Now, I'm laying in the emergency hospital, my mind, of course, always there to be supportive and loving of all my work. Says to me, well, first the doctors are saying to me, you know, the typical physician bullshit. Because my back is really bad, right? I mean, I was of the type of insanity that you came at from behind. You didn't come at me from the front because I was just too crazy to come at from the front. So I have been hitting with a lot of nightsticks and shotgun butts and shit in the back, and I have fractured vertebrae, broken bones, a crushed pelvis, and, you know, a few bullet holes. So it's basically, the back is not in good shape. So these doctors are saying to me, well, that's it. You can't go back to this line of work. You can't lift anything heavy again. And you can't stand for long periods of time. Okay? Brilliant physicians. And they really know what they're talking about. God bless them. I mean, I listen to all that. I'm not any better. You know, I still have the same body now I had then. I ran 6 miles this morning with Doug this morning. I'll go run 12 with him tomorrow, but I can't walk, right, or stand for long periods of time. Anyhow, I'm laying there, and the doctors all leave this little cubicle and leave me laying there on the gurney in my mind. Says, see? Huh? You dumb son of a bitch. You surrendered to him last night. Today, he broke your back. I told you he was waiting for you. And from somewhere inside down here came this voice, and it said, shut up! And I thought, God, I think I will. You know, I'm so tired. I'm just so tired of listening. I'm just not going to listen anymore. And I decided what I was going to do is I was going to do what was put in front of me to do. If it was right here, I was going to deal with it, and if it wasn't right here, I wasn't going to deal with it. That was the entire way I was going to handle my life. I had somebody say one time, I heard the best description, somebody said one time, how do you know God's will? How do you determine God's will? And this guy said, not on a program, but a very interesting spiritual guy we know, said, it is simple. You go out the door, and when you hit a wall, turn left. And that is so true, because what God wants is so easy to achieve, but we'll get to that, right? So now, the only 2 things there are for me to do is to go to vocational rehabilitation, see what the hell they're going to do with me, and apply for disability insurance, okay? Now, I don't know about this state, but Voc Rehab, oh, great, thank you very much, very thoughtful. Voc Rehab in California leaves a lot to be desired, particularly dealing with those that are mentally handicapped. So I go to Voc Rehab. I have this charming sponsor who's in a wheelchair. She's really a neat gal. I mean, she wants to try and do a good job, but she has a tendency to be a little over-efficient. So in essence, the first 5 weeks I go to Voc Rehab, they give me 5 aptitude tests. I came out 5 entirely different aptitudes. Okay? And I wasn't being cute. I wasn't trying to be funny. I wasn't trying to hassle Voc Rehab. I wasn't trying to be a problem child. Each week when I went in, I answered the questions as honestly as I could answer them that moment when I sat there. I came out a social worker, someone interested in classical music with a musical thing. Oh, Jesus, I can't carry a tune. A forest ranger, mechanically inclined, right? Rocks and guns I'm good with. Beyond that, forget it. So, and I can't remember what the 5th was, so I looked at this lady and I said, you understand here, if we take this classical pianist or oriented person and stick him in the forest, we're going to have a serious problem on our hands. And so they thought, well, maybe I should become a psychologist. And I said, because of my affiliation with AA, right? She said, we'll get you a high school equivalency test and we'll send you through 4 years of UCLA and get your bachelor's in psychology. And I said, I couldn't get through high school, for Christ's sakes. I mean, I had the worst attitude in the world. I walk out of the room, throw books in the wastebasket and say, this is boring, stuff it, and truck on down the hall. I mean, that's my education, And I said, hey, what the hell makes you think I'm going to function on a college campus with college students, right? I was too crazy. I said, that ain't it, forget that one. So now we begin the process of what is little Bobby going to do, So I show up every week and I take my test or talk to them or have my interview and I get my disability check and I go to my doctor and get the braces and crap on my back adjusted or corrected or fixed or whatever. And I just go along minding my own business and nothing is happening. There's no job coming. Nothing's going on. I still don't have a car. I'm into most of my babies for about $300 each, right? Because I'm totally out of money trying to live on disability, and life is not thrilling. But it's okay. I've decided this is God's will. I have decided my life is in perfect order, even though it doesn't make sense to me. That has become one of the single most valuable prayers of my sobriety. If I can sit down at any moment on any day, no matter what's going on in my life, and say, okay, I get it. My life is in perfect order this moment, even though it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if things are just crashing down all around me, I can just say, okay, it's cool. It's in perfect order. I don't understand it. And once I declare that and believe that, I've discovered an interesting thing. Those things that aren't are immediately corrected. Immediately corrected. They are changed and altered. Even though I may not want to let go of them, they get changed and altered. December rolls around, okay? I'm sitting 6 months now. I've been going through this. Nothing happened. Keeping the faith, trucking along. I'm sitting home, I'm reading television guide, and I hit an ad, and TV guide says, would you like to be a writer? Now, a little thing inside of me goes, yeah. I'd like to try that. So, I go to Voc Rehab. I have my little ad in my hand. I sit down with my vocational rehabilitation counselor. I give her my little ad out of TV Guide, and I say, I would like to try this. She got hysterical, right? I mean, a little support from the state, too, right? She laughed so goddamn hard she almost fell out of her wheelchair. I mean, she thought it was hysterical. Because she had my whole record in front of her. She knew everything there was to know about me. She knew that I was thrown out of high school in the 10th grade. She knew that I had failed English ever since the 4th grade. By all the applications I filled out, she knew that I was a phonetic speller, right? You know. Phonetic spelling is easy. Have you ever tried it? It's great, you know. DED is dead. Phonetic spelling is difficult, though, if you try to look up words in the dictionary. Sometimes I have to start, well, I'll get into it. Sometimes I have to start at the head of the letter with a ruler and just go word by word. Because I can't hear a letter, and if you can't hear the second letter, you're screwed. There's no H in character. I got to tell you, it takes a long time to find it in the dictionary. Anyhow, she figured it was a lunacy, absolute lunacy, for me to think about doing anything like that. So, she, however, takes the ad in to her boss. All right? God, in his infinite wisdom now, has just snookered bureaucracy. All right? Because I am the oldest caseload they got. They don't have anybody left from August, nobody left from September, much less July. Okay? So I am the one single black mark on the record of Van Nuys Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. This guy, her boss, would have paid for basket weaving if I wanted to go. Okay? So he said, pay for the course. Let him have the course. All right? And I'm out of their hair. Okay? Now I want you to listen very carefully to all this, because I want you to see how much thought went into all this. How much planning, scheming, maneuvering, manipulating, arranging, and grasping and hanging on I had to do to bring any of this about. So I go home, I send for my books, I get my books, I sit down, and I start to write. And I start trying, the first thing I try to write is a short story, because I figure it's easy, and there's a lot of them in a lot of magazines, and somebody will certainly buy one, right? It was so bad. It was really bad. I think it was two guys sitting in a drive-in and waiting for the connection. You know, I can't remember. But being written from the point of view of the connection who's standing across the street knowing he ain't going to give him the dope because he doesn't like him anyhow. Tell you what I was like when I was back there. Money wasn't enough. You had to have a charming personality if you wanted to get off. You know what I mean? So I'm reading my books, and it says, I'm reading through them, it says, for a first-time writer, it is essential that you write for a medium that you're familiar with. And I thought, well, Cal, I never read anything, you know, but I've watched a lot of television, so maybe I should try TV. So I think, okay, great. So I sit down and I start trying to write a story for Bonanza, a Western, right? It was very bad. Right? The idea itself was wonderful, okay, because I sold the idea a year later and wrote it as a Virginian, the basic idea, but my execution of it was just bleak, okay? And I'm reading on in my books and trying to write this thing, and the next line I hit in the book says, not only is it essential for the beginning writer to write for a medium they're familiar with, it is critical that they write about something they're familiar with. I thought, oh, God, I never lived in the Old West. You know, what the hell are this? And I thought, well, crime. You know, I know about crime. So I started watching crime shows. So I started watching the crime shows, and I zeroed in on Ironsides. I said, all right, I like that show because the guy is pretty sharp and he's a thinker. And I thought, what have I not seen a story about on TV that I would like to see done well? I thought, I've never seen one about anybody, a righteous payroll check passer, right? Figured it was a subject familiar, and I might have some information no one else who tried to write it before had. So I sit down, and now I begin to try and write this story for Ironsides about this check casher, okay? Now, I had made it a point years before in sobriety to not ask people what they did for a living. I just didn't want to know, because my makeup is such that I'd be in trouble. I was impressed by what people did. So if I knew that George over here was the vice president of the Beverly Hills Bank, and Sam over here is a plumber, right? And both come up to me at opposite times after the meeting and want to go out and have coffee and talk, Sam's screwed, okay? I'll fix my own plumbing, you know what I mean? But you never know when you're going to need the banker. So I never asked people what they did. Now this is now, it's 5.5 years sober, 5 years and a few months, still don't have a car, and a friend of mine is bringing me home from a meeting, a guy I've known for a couple of years. And he says, hey, what the hell are you doing now? You know, how's that thing going with Voc Rehab? I said, oh, well, I'm trying to write a story for television. And he says, oh, yeah, really? He said, that's what I do. I said, what? He said, I write for television. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, listen, when you finish it, if you want, you know, if you'd like, I'll read it, and maybe I can give you some pointers or, you know, help you out with it. I said, oh, all right, far out, you know, great. And away he went. And see how much scheming I had to do to find him? See how hard I had to look to get assistance with this project? See how many phone calls I had to make and how many, if you could introduce me to her, she can introduce me to him, and he can introduce me to him. You know, I mean, ain't none of that necessary. I mean, you feel free to do it if you're bored, but none of it's necessary. If you want what's good, just let it go and truck on down the path. You'll meet who you're supposed to meet, you know. It's like, I don't believe in emergency phone calls. I don't make them and I don't receive them. I figure if you're supposed to talk to me, I'm off the phone. If I'm not, you're not supposed to talk to me. It's that simple. You'd be amazed how that belief will change your life, how that will just alter your life in sobriety. You'll talk to who you're supposed to. They're not home or their phone's busy, forget it. Call somebody else. Go somewhere else. Do something else. If you were supposed to get to them, you will. Okay. I finish my story, I give it to my friend, he reads it. He makes a dozen suggestions. 6 of them I like, 6 of them I don't like. So I make the 6 I like, I don't make the 6 I don't like, and I've since learned that's just a matter of creative choices. It's just a matter of taste. I get the changes done, and he says, look, there's a girl on the program who, after work at night, types scripts and stories on the side. Would you like her to type it up for me? I said, yeah, you know, somebody's got to, for Christ's sakes, you know. I mean, I don't think the studio knows DED is dead. I could definitely use a little assistance with this part. So he gives it to this girl to type. And I'm still awake for 3 days, half awake, half asleep, thinking, how am I going to get to the studio? What the hell am I going to do? Jim doesn't know anybody on Ironsides. Who am I going to talk to? I don't have an agent. How the hell, you know, the mind's well, this is it. You come this far. Fuck it. It's over. You know. It's one more time, you wasted your time. You know. You're really good at screwing your life, man. You just keep jerking yourself off that you're going to amount to something. It's so much fun to have so much support as you go through life, you know. I'm going to tell you later where I learned all that, too. Seeing as how Mother's Day just passed. So I'm sweating this one out, surrendering it and sweating. God will get it there. No, he won't. God, yes, God will get it there. No, he won't. You're finished. About 3 days later, this girl calls me on the phone. She says, hey, I just finished typing your story. And she said, I read it, and I really like it very much. She said, I think it's very good. She said, did Jim tell you where I work? I said, no. She said, oh, well, I am secretary to the associate producer on Ironsides. See how much scheming I had to do to work this one out? She said, if you don't mind, if it doesn't bother you, I'll take it in and ask them to read it. See how much scheming I did? How many people I had to have call, how many people to make how many arrangements to meet so-and-so and get this and accomplish that? Nothing simple. I was just going on stupid right down the path. Hit a wall, turn left, that's it, okay. It's okay by me. She takes it in, they read it at the studio, and they really like it, and calls me up, this producer calls me up, come in for the meeting. And now, Jim sits me down, and he forgets I'm a literal person. I'm going to tell you this, because all this is really important, to surrendering, to letting go. I want you to understand God really works for us, man, because I'm certainly not one of the chosen few. You know, I didn't come from some life of good alcoholism, nice guy, drank too much, you know. So Jim says, okay, now, the guy's going to ask you if you've ever written a script before, okay? He says, tell him no, be honest with him. He says, tell him no. He says, but tell him that you'll do a better job for him than his hacks at the studio, because it's more important to you than it is to them, and that they're only going to pay you $2,600 for it anyway, and they piss that much away on a mistake on every show. Okay? I got it. So I get to Universal Studios, and I've got my little story in my hand. I'm riding up in the elevator in the dark black tower, and I'm saying to God, if you don't get off this elevator with me, I am really fucked, man. I almost like going to sentencing better than this, man. You know what I mean? So I go in this guy's office, and I sit down, and I am dealing with, I did not know this at the time, one of the tyrants, okay? One of the tyrants, one of the guys that people walk on eggshells around because he takes no shit from nobody for any reason. You could be fired in a second flat, right? I sit down, and I'm sitting in his office, and he looks across his desk at me. He says, I like the story very much, and we intend to go ahead with it. He said, have you ever written a script? I said, no, I haven't. I said, but I will do a better job for you than your hacks here because it's more... It's more important to me than it is to them, and you're only going to pay me $2,600 for it, and you piss that much away on a mistake on every show. Stone silence, right? The longest 10 seconds of my life, and then he starts to laugh. And he's laughing uncontrollably because nobody has ever talked to him like that, right? So he says, go home and write me a script, right? So I went home, and I sat down, and I wrote him a script. I did such a good job with the script, they thought it was so terrific, they took an option or a year contract to have me write exclusively for Universal Studios. And they were good to me, and they let me work every aspect of the script, and they let me come in, and the new director was directing my episode, so they let me spend the whole week with him while it was being shot. And I mean, the guys were really nice to me. And when the day the shooting was over, this producer says to me, come on in the office next Wednesday, this is Friday. I want to do another one with you. Let's do another show. Think of some ideas and come in. Bad word, think. I go home, I can't think of anything. Friday night, nothing. I said, that's okay, you know. Understandable. I've heard about block. It's, you know, something I've read somewhere or heard a writer talk about it on a talk show or something, but I know, you know, creative people are stuck with block, right? Saturday, Zippo, nothing. You know, I couldn't think of an idea of my life depended on it. I went to 3 meetings, I think, on Saturday, listening to speakers, thinking maybe I could get a story out of their pitch. You know. I'm in desperate anything, I'll take anything, any idea at all, you know. My mind, of course, is being really supportive, saying, come on, stop wasting your goddamn time, you know. You've heard about all these authors that have one book in them, you got one goddamn TV show in you, it's over, okay? Now go back to the car wash where you belong and give up this bullshit. Sunday is like terror, okay? Nothing. Zippo, no idea. Monday, Tuesday, I mean, you know how it gets, right? I mean, I'm gone. I'm into the realm of another planet somewhere, you know. So I read a line a while back that said the armchair is the neurotic spaceship. I love it. You know, I just sat down, grabbed onto the arms, and left, you know. Nothing to do except worry, you know. Finally, Wednesday came, and I said, okay, I'll show up. I will show up. I will show up. I will be embarrassed. I will be humiliated. I will probably stutter. I will probably be thrown out of the business. They'll probably cancel the option on a year contract. And I'm going to show up anyway because God didn't put me here just to dump me. I can't believe He brought me this far to drop the goddamn ball. So I go up in the elevator and I'm scared. And I go in his office and I sit down and I'm scared, man. And he looks at me and says, got any ideas? You know? I said, well, nothing really. He said, that's all right, look. I've been thinking, and there's a show I really want to do, and maybe you're the one to write it. He said, I feel it's time to do a serious, honest, hard look at drugs and teenagers. Oh, yeah? Yeah. So I said, well, yeah, you know, we could talk about that, but right? He says to me, hey, wait a minute, how come you know so much? And I sat there and thought, oh, Jesus, I did it this time. I said, hey, I've come this far, I ain't gonna duck and dodge, man, and try and be cool, because I've missed most of life trying to look good and be cool. But I'd rather not miss too much more if I can avoid it. So I said, well, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I drank and used for a lot of years, and ran narcotics across the borders and dealt with this and that, and I've been clean and sober through the combined programs of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous for 5 years. He says, oh, that's terrific. He said, well, let's talk about the story. As I got ready to leave his office, he said, listen, I hope you're not offended. He said, but I would like to get a technical advisor for the show. You know who we got? A narc from the San Fernando Valley where I took a shot at him. He tried to pretend I didn't exist when he came into the office. I tried to not regret missing. And we did the show, and it was incredible, and it was well received, and it got close-ups on TV Guide, and it was so popular they had to put it on 16-millimeter film and send it to most police departments and public service groups around the country. Show number 2. Okay? Because we did an honest story about kids and drugs, upper middle-class kids and narcotics. And we didn't end it with a happy ending. The girl went to jail. So, my career proceeds to go along. Fine. I mean, I'm going. They take me under contract, I work there, I write for other shows, and everything's bouncing along, and I'm going through life, except like other areas of my life are disorganized, relationships are just incredible. It's like, I'll talk about one, I don't even know why, but I will talk about it. Why am I going to talk? Who cares? Oh my God. Days can be oh so long sometimes. When the adolescent is in charge, it's always a long day. God. It's just, you know, right? And it's hard. I mean, you know, the closer to adolescence you are, the less ridiculous it looks. Anyhow, geez, no. Well, yeah, okay. At about 8 years, I've been writing for 3 years, and things are pretty good. And I've gone through a couple of disastrous relationships, 3 to be exact, and not counting short-lived ones. Those duration, light housekeeping with heavy expenses and a lot of broken dishes. I try and buy peace at all costs. What do you want? Just shut up. Don't ask for love, I'll get you a new sweater instead. I have a problem giving to things. You know, I'm getting better at it. I have about 12 or 13 plants in my apartment now. I live alone and they're all alive. Now, you don't know what a miracle that is. Because I've never been able to have plants because they require water, so they always die. Babies would bring me big, beautiful ferns for a gift, right? You know, and say, God, here's, you know, I mean, thrilled and delighted, joy in their eyes at this gorgeous plant they found they brought me. I'd say something like, oh, geez, another fucking plant, you know. They say, boy, you're a lot of fun to give to, you know. Like everything else died, and I've been taking care of my plants because I'm in a different place now. But I tell you, it's interesting still because this is insight into how, for me, how I deal with and relate to people. The cleaning gal said to me about 3 or 4 days ago, she said, you got to get a taller stick for this one, right? Because it's growing so big. I've been nurturing it, right? Sucker's growing so big it's leaning. I got mad at the plant. You know? I said, what the fuck do you want from me? You know? Right? I've been watering you, goddamn it. Now you want a bigger stick, more string, bigger pot, you know. I'm doing the best I can. What the hell do you expect, you know? I'll take it and get somebody else to put it in a bigger pot and bring it home, you know. Anyhow, after a few disastrous relationships and everything, I walked into a meeting one night and somebody came up to me after and shook hands and said, geez, thank you very much for my talk. Your talk, my name's Taylor, and yada, yada, yada. And I took one look at her and fell hopelessly in love. Absolutely, completely, hopelessly in love. And the people who were standing around us at the time said, it was one of those kind of meetings of 2 people where the sparks just flew. Just flew. It's like there wasn't anybody within 10 yards of us that wasn't aware of the energy that was taking place between she and I. And we spent the following 2 years in a really good, reasonably adult, healthy, basic relationship. We lived in separate places. Although I might spend 10 days at her place or she might spend 10 days at mine, we still always maintained separate residence. And we got to grow together and know each other and share together, and we kind of went down life together. And finally, after 2 years, we made the decision we thought we would like to get married. And the first thing we did to discuss marriage is we went out of town to a hotel we had never been to neutral ground. No memories, you know, she hadn't been here with an old lover, I hadn't been here with an old lover. It wasn't a familiar or favorite hotel of either one of ours. And we sat down, we discussed marriage, and on an intellectual level, we decided that it was something that we very much wanted to do. That it was something we very much wanted to do. But we decided there was a spiritual aspect to marriage, too. And the next thing we did is we jumped on a plane and we flew to Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri. And we would spend some time with the ministers walking the grounds and talking and discussing marriage. And we decided, yeah, this is it. This is definitely the next move or the next step in our lives. This is December. We came back in December. We bought a house in Laguna Beach. And on January 6th, we got married. And on February 7th, she wasn't feeling well. She's been, like, complaining, and we had thought it was an allergy. So we put her in a hospital. Can't tell you how much talking back in the back distracts the shit out of me. It just irritates me. I think it's discourteous to speak her. You know, I really do. I think it's terribly discourteous to speak her. Anyhow, on February 7th, the allergies we thought got to the point where they were severe and had possibly become walking pneumonia, and we put her in the hospital. On the 10th of February, the doctor, who was a close personal friend of ours, walked into our room with tears in his eyes and said, "You have cancer, and you might live 6 months, if you're lucky." And she was the type of woman that she cheered him up, okay, because he felt so bad that he had to be the bearer of these kind of tidings. She lived until April 23rd, just less than 2 months later. And then she died. And I've never understood why. Don't ask me the why. But I had somebody tell me one time that if you want to live a true spiritual life, if you want to believe, trust, and walk the path, you never ask why. Why is the one question that has no meaning. You just go and just keep going. And I guess I learned a lot of good things in that relationship. The one thing I did not deal with, though, when she did die, was the grief. I stuffed it all. You know, I just handled it really well. Everybody said, "Boy, you're taking this really well." They should have seen me this last December. 10 years later, it came. The grief came like a freight train. I spent, like a month and a half just walking around in tears every day. I would sit in my apartment and I would cry for 4 or 5 hours and just physically, just until I felt beaten up and bruised on the inside. But I feel a lot better today. I have gotten past it finally. I have let that go. But anyhow, right? Let's dismiss the pain. A few more years go by, and I'm at the studio one day, and the career's been going okay, but I'm like dull. I'm not dead, and I'm not alive. I'm just kind of dull, and I've been dull for a while. And I have this horrible feeling that life is going by, and I'm somehow not participating, and I don't understand what it is. Well, a friend of mine comes to the studio to visit me. He's been sober about 12, 14 years. I was going to have lunch. And he's one of these guys who's not cool. Okay? He gets excited at anything. All right? He's so goddamn glad to be alive, he can't stand still. So he comes to the studio, and the minute he sets foot on the lot, his little kid comes out of him, right? I mean, he is ecstatic to be in a motion picture studio. And we're walking around the lot, and he's going nuts, right? It's like, oh, God, wow, there's, what's his name, the star, Jesus, dang, right? I want to die, man. I want to die. I want to hide somewhere. I mean, I don't want anybody to know I know this guy, right? And I mean, he's like that. We're going everywhere, and he says, oh, God, look at that. That's far. Oh, that's the guys from Cheese. I think, well, I'll get him in the commissary, get him some food, and shut him up, right? I get him in the commissary, nothing changes, right? He says, wow, it's the guys from MASH. Christ, that's the priest. I mean, he's like, he can't sit still. His hands are going. I'm like, oh, God, I get him out of the commissary and they screw it. I'll take him to the stage and show him, I have to be quiet when they're shooting because bells and lights go off. They say, shut up, right? And I get them down on the set and they do this great special effects gag, and this dumb son of a bitch, right after it's over, walks up to the special effects guy and says, that was terrific. How did you do that? Now, a cool person, goddammit, would never do that. And the special effects guy turns on him and says, oh, yeah, well, what we did is, I mean, he's so excited to explain what he does because he's so proud of what he does that he just runs it all on my friend, right? And I listened and thought, God, that's really interesting. See, I didn't know how it was done either. Because I never asked. I've been cool, right? Finally, I get him out of the studio. 4 hours later, I go back, I sit down in my office, and I'm like, exhausted. And then I start to get mad. And I'm getting really angry. And what I'm getting angry at is, I have at this point worked in the business for probably 10 years, 12 years, right? And this guy just came to the studio, had more fun and more excitement with what I do in 4 hours than I had had in 12 years. He had a ball. I had never had a ball. One of the reasons I had never had a ball is I was waiting to be found out. See? I'd go in the studio a lot of mornings knowing that my parking place would be gone. the sign would be gone, and then it would just serve notice that I no longer worked there, that it was over. See, because I never had enough self-esteem to believe that they had me there and were paying the money they were paying me because God damn it, I'm good at what I do. I never could accept that, right? And I got really furious that this guy had so much fun with what the hell I did, So I went out of my office and walked around the lot, and I went, wow, this is incredible. We create illusions here. I write words and people say them. I describe buildings and they build them. I thought, this is just awesome. I really got excited about it. And I got back to my office and I sat down, and the first thing my head, always being supportive of everything I do, says to me, but it isn't going to last much longer. And I went, oh my God, And I decided at this time and point in my life, another few months went by, and finally it came to my attention that I had done all of this program as good as I could do it, and it wasn't enough for me. I needed more. And at that point, 17 years sober, I checked in with a therapist, right? I went to a girl I'd known for a long time. I'd watched her go and change and go and change and go and change. Finally I said, I got to do it because I can't stand this anymore. I'm beating myself to death, and I don't know. I'm going into a good job, and I want to die because I know I'm unworthy, and I don't have any sense of myself. And it's an interesting thing about not being in touch with your feelings, because the biggest war cry of the alcoholic I have ever heard, mine included, is, I'm so lonely. I'm so goddamn lonely. I can't stand it. And the thing I discovered about me is when I'm not in touch with my feelings, if I go home alone, no other human being is there, not that it matters, in a lot of cases whether or not there is, but no other human being is there, I go home alone, if I am not in touch with what I'm feeling, nobody's home. No wonder it's so goddamn lonely. Nobody's there. There's a body sitting in a chair with a lot of voices. Talking. All supportive and loving and telling me what a wonderful future I'm going to have. After I die. Which is going to be in 3 months because the bump on my knee is cancer. Always there to just help me through life. So I arrange a meeting with this therapist, and I go and I sit down with her, this get-together, get-to-know-each other session, right? The freebie. And she says to me, well, starting with your childhood, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I said, well, when I was 15 years old, they threw me out of Manual Arts High School, and at about the same time I discovered the wonderful world of narcotics and alcohol. I spent the next 11 years drinking, using, dealing narcotics, involved in crime. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous at 26 years of age, and I am now 43 years of age, and here I am, and, 17 years clean and sober. She said, wait a minute. She said, I said, start with your childhood. Your life did not begin at 15. That's why I don't remember my childhood. And she gets that look, right, that therapists get. I can write a paper on this sucker. You know what I mean? This guy's going to get me in the journal. She said, tell me about anything, any incident. I said, I don't remember any incident. And we talked for a few minutes more, and I remember nothing. Everything back, with the exception of about 3 things, from birth to 15 years of age, was blank. I can remember one beating from my father. I can remember falling out of a second-story window into a cement gutter on my head when I was 4 years old and being unconscious for 3 days. I just, that's about it. That's the sum total of recollections of my childhood that I had. And she said, well, I think, we could do a little something here. And I went away, and I thought, what the hell is this? And I discovered what's really interesting, because I'd written a lot of inventories in AA. I'd probably written 25 inventories, And I had taken them with sponsors all the time, and it dawned on me, a light went on. I thought, Jesus, these guys can't remember their childhood either. No wonder it wasn't strange to them. I read from 15, and they understood. They couldn't remember it from Zippo. They go, yeah, right, See, I never thought any of that was important. That what happens to you what does that matter? You know, what happens to you when you're a little kid? Well, hey, let me devote 2 minutes to what it's like to grow up in my house, which wasn't that tragic. At some levels, it was just devastating, but beyond that, it was no big deal. My father was a chronic alcoholic. The disease killed him. My mother's the kind of patient neurotic who stays on an alcoholic for 15 years. And that basically was where I was brought up in. My parents were smart enough never to get a dog because they knew it would require too much care and attention, so they had a kid instead. I was raised in a house of silence. I was raised in a house where there was no honest confrontations of any kind of love or hate. Nobody hugged anybody, nobody kissed anybody, least of all me. Everybody was quiet. There was a rule, peace at all costs. Peace at all costs. You must have peace. There must be no disruptions of the smooth flow. I learned that if I was quiet, shut up, asked for nothing, didn't laugh, didn't cry, made no emotional upheavals of any kind, sat in a corner, was a good boy. That was a good boy, and I was okay. So you're not allowed to develop an identity, any personality. You get no love, you get no support. Nobody holds you, nobody hugs you, nobody nurtures you. I lived the whole life, man, trying to be hard. The last thing I ever wanted to admit to anybody is that I needed to be helped, that I needed to be loved. I mean, around Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the things that we do here that's really kind of tragic is we can't tell somebody we just want to be held. I am lonely, I am frightened, I would like to just be held tonight. So we screw them. You know, right? And it starts from there. I mean, I can phrase it better, but, you know, I think everybody understands what I'm trying to say. And it's a tragedy that we have to do that, and the only reason I have to do that is if you can't ask for what you want, it's because you don't care about yourself, right? Well, I never believed all that childhood bullshit until I started to dig into my own, and I began to come up with little things like, I remember once, we never had any money. We were poor because my father drank up all the money. So Christmas would come, and I always wanted money. I mean, Mom is very important to us, guys. God knows we've looked for her long enough, you know what I mean? So I always wanted to give her something special for Christmas. So prior to Christmas, I'd steal 2 or 3 utensils out of the drawers in the kitchen. Huh? And I'd steal a little Christmas paper, and I'd wrap them up, and I'd put a bow on it, you know, and I'd make it really neat, and I'd put it under the tree. And Christmas morning would come, and I would be very proud of this spatula, you know, or cookie cutter, or flour sifter, whatever the hell I had wrapped up. I was really thrilled with it. This is a big thing, man. And she would unwrap this and say, I wondered where that was. And just think, the Board of Criminal Psychiatry could never figure out why I was so angry. What's the shame they didn't ask? Well, I didn't know. We lived upstairs over a cosmetic manufacturing company, you know, in an apartment over a factory. And I'll go downstairs, and they used to throw out broken compacts. And I would go through these 50-gallon trash drums of broken compacts. I mean, I would spend 3 hours until I found the one compact with the smallest little chip in it, and found the one little piece of pancake makeup or whatever it is that goes in there with the smallest little piece missing, and the mirror with the least little crack or no crack, and I would put these 3 together into one really good little compact, and I would take it upstairs, and I would give it to this woman, and I would say, here, say, I love you. Say you shouldn't take things out of the trash and throw it away. Okay? And I'd go out, break some poor son of a bitch's jaw 10 years later, and they'd wonder why, you know. I know a lot of guys like to meet my mother. And so I go on, and I'm still going to therapy, and I'm still into some of this, and I'm still not putting it together. It's not hooking up for me yet. I can't understand why I still have no sense of value, why I don't feel like I count. And I'm starting to run, and I go to well, I'll tell the story. What time is it? When is this over? I don't know when to stop. Oh, all right. I start running, and I'm running with these guys, and first of all, they're into speed, and they're killing me, and beyond that, with my body, I'm being cool. I got different pairs of shoes with different surfaces, but I also have a very strange body, right? And every time I change shoes, I get blisters, you know, on my feet. And so these guys all say to me in unison, skilled running, there's a great podiatrist in Long Beach. He is a marathoner himself, Go to him. He will fix orthotics for your shoes. You move them from one pair of shoes to the other to the other. They basically make shoes identical, and you can eliminate the blister problem. So I go home. I'm living in Santa Monica. I don't know if you know the geography, but Long Beach is 35 miles from Santa Monica. I'm sitting home, and I'm thinking, oh, come on, Long Beach? I mean, Long Beach is a long way to go, you know? I mean, screw Long Beach. I heard about this cute brunette who's a podiatrist in Century City. I'll go to her, right? So I go to her. She makes me a poor pair of orthotics, and I go out and run 3 miles, go home, sit down for an hour, and get up and can't walk. Okay? My back is gone. Absolutely gone. So I go to these guys, all my running friends are saying, look, there's a group of doctors in Pasadena. These guys are the best sports medicine physicians in Southern California. They deal with the Olympic runners. They'll have you back going good in no time at all. Well, Pasadena is just as far as Long Beach. You know what I mean? I go home, I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, God damn, Pasadena? I don't want to go to Pasadena. And you know what the tragedy is? If you came to me at my house and said, look, I got to go to this doctor in Pasadena to get my back fixed, I would take you. I would put you in the car and drive you. I won't take me. You wonder why we drink 4 gallons of coffee and smoke 16 packs of cigarettes and eat 100 pounds of sugar? Because we are unwilling to go through any period of discomfort in order to do anything good for ourselves. We don't believe we're worth 3 months of a little anxiety over giving up sugar, coffee, or cigarettes, so we just keep destroying ourselves, right? You know, I'm not worth it. Screw it. I'd do it for you. I'd go through the aggravation for you. I'd help you get through it. I'd bring you water or nurse you through your cigarette withdrawal, but I'll just keep smoking, right? So I go to a chiropractor in the marina who's 40 pounds overweight, and his eyes glaze over when I mention running, doesn't even know what the hell it is. He puts my back in, I go run, it goes out. He puts it in, I go run, it goes out. I go through this for 3 weeks, right, till I'm pretty well crippled and half dead. Finally, I give up and go to the podiatrist in Long Beach. The podiatrist in Long Beach is looking at my feet, and he looks at my right foot. He says, your right foot is practically a club foot. I said, huh? He said, yeah, it's practically a club foot. I said, how did it happen? He said, I have no idea. He said, it's from childhood, from when you were small. I said, really? He said, yeah. And I'm uncomfortable. I'm really uncomfortable. He's telling me this about my foot, and I'm sick at my stomach. I want to throw up. And I'm not used to those kind of feelings. I'm used to keeping everything down, right? And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. And I go home, and I'm sitting at home, and I'm like a little perspiration and queasy, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell is it? You know, why do I feel so rotten? And my mother calls. Bless her heart. God's timing is so good. I can't believe it. And she's just come from her podiatrist, right? Bitching about how he's taking care of her feet. And when I get done listening to her usual line of bullshit, right, I said, look, as long as we're on the subject of feet, did I have any problems with my feet when I was small that you've never told me about? She said, well, yeah, you had very high arches and they required special shoes when you were small. Very expensive special shoes. And in the next, a couple of people understand what's coming. In the next couple of minutes, she reiterated probably 5 times how expensive these shoes were that they had to buy to correct my arches. I hang up the phone with her, and I'm like torn between wanting to sit, curl up in a small ball and cry, and wanting to put my fist through the wall. I mean, it's like I'm going this fast from the one emotion to the other. I'm like up, rage, aiming for the wall, and it's like, God, I can't stand the pain. The next day, I go see my therapist, and I'm telling her what's going on, and she says, well, let's get back there. Let's go back. Let's find out. Let's see what we can uncover. And we go back and back and back, and what we finally come upon is this absolutely adorable 2-year-old little boy. I mean, he was just beautiful with his big blue eyes and his little sailor suit standing there in the hallway in a building in Denver, Colorado. He's got these little shoes on, and he's talking to his mother, and the tears are streaming down his face because the pain is so great because his shoes are too small and they hurt. And his mother is saying to him, because she loves him so much, shh, we wouldn't want your father to hear, because shoes are very expensive and he'll get angry. Okay? I go the next day to my lovely podiatrist in Long Beach, and I sit down and I said, John, could that foot have been caused by wearing shoes designed for high arches when I was small, when I was a little boy, that were too small? He said, yeah, that's probably what did it. And I sat there, and if I hadn't been with a basic stranger, I probably would have cried for an hour, because it dawned on me why, through 17 years of sobriety, doing the best job I knew how to do, being well received and accepted in an industry that I worked in, and paid top money for the work that I do, I still felt like a turd. Because if I'm not worth buying shoes for that fit, what value have I got? I mean, what kind of person am I? I mean, that's the sum total of how you learn to view yourself, is based on, that's the yardstick, guys. I hate to tell you that. That's the yardstick. That's it. Now, I have a horrible time still with my parents. My father's been dead a number of years. I go now to visit my mother, and 90 minutes is it, man. You know, this sweet, gray-headed little old lady sits there, and I swear to God, if I can just 90 minutes and I start thinking about strangulation, you know, it's like... And then, you know, people, they say, well, God, you got to forgive your parents. They did the best job they know how to do with the tools that they had. I agree. I agree. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly. But the error I have seen made hundreds of times here, and I made it myself. If somebody said that to me 15 years ago in sobriety, 18 years ago in sobriety, I said, yeah, they did the best job they could. Okay, I forgive them. That's it. And on with life, and my whole life is fucked up because nothing is resolved, right? I can't relate to people. I can't have a decent relationship because I don't know how to take care of me. If I can't take care of me, I can't take care of you, for Christ's sakes. You know, they say the necessary ingredients in a relationship are intimacy, tenderness, consideration, kindness, and love. And if I can't be intimate, tender, considerate, kind, and in love with myself, I can't give it to you. I hate knowing that. Okay? But if I can't give it to me, I can't give it to you. So if you're not in a relationship at the moment and you're looking around and you're shopping, I got to tell you, want to know how you're going to be treated? Look how they treat themselves. Look at how the prospective person treats himself. And that's how you're going to be treated. If you don't take care of him, he ain't going to take care of you. If she doesn't take care of herself, she ain't going to take care of you. And if she can't be loving and kind and supportive to herself and nurturing to her, she can't be to you. And the same thing happens to him. And we keep coming together, two halves, trying to make a whole. You know, that's the whole thing we do here. Two halves, we say, there's another half, we'll make a whole. Well, don't work. You know, it don't happen that way, right? I don't know where I was going with all that, but anyhow, what the hell time? Today, 20 years and however months sober, I am literally in the best place of my life. I will tell another story. Yes, this is necessary. Well, I don't know if it's necessary. Jesus, you know. Some people probably want to go home, you know. I'm ready myself. After I've been writing for about 5 years or so, 6 years, I don't remember when it was, I had to write a script in a real hurry for a show. And I wrote it in 4 days. And I sent it into him and left town, right? Because I just knew 4 days it had to be, right, a piece of, you know. So I get to Hawaii where I was going, and I was there about 3 days, and a letter came in the mail from the studio. And I was staying with this friend of mine in Hawaii, and we're standing in the driveway at her house, and I've got this letter, and it's got the producer's name on it, and it's from the studio, and it's addressed to me at this house. And I'm standing there like any good alcoholic, trying to read through the envelope. knowing I can read through the envelope, you know, not even trying. And I know what the letter says, see? I know the letter says, this is the worst piece of shit we have ever read in our lives. Not only will you not work for our show again, you will never work at the studio again, and if we have anything to say about it, you'll never work in the goddamn town again. This person with me, having no sense of any kind, also says, why don't you open it? Well, can't stand simple people. They drive me nuts. You know? Because I'm still sitting there trying to figure it out, right? And I opened it up, and the letter in essence said this from the producer. He said, I wanted to take a minute out to thank you for the script. It is one of the 2 finest scripts that we have had written for this series since we've been on the air. I appreciate the time. I appreciate all of the love and the tenderness and the emotion that is in this script. We have decided not to rush it into production. We will wait till you return to make some minor necessary changes, and then we will give it the time and the money that should be given to it to make it the show that it should be. Thank you, and signed by him. You know what my first thought was? Well, at least they're not pissed. I think self-esteem is the #1 problem of the sober alcoholic. But I got to tell you, about 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in a hotel in Century City with the vice president of one of the networks, having lunch while he told me how much they hoped I would be on one of their shows in the coming season and how much they'd like to have me because of the quality of the work I do and how much they like all the shows that I have written for them. And I sat there finally, thank God, at that lunch, comfortable, at peace, and knowing he was right. So if I've come here to say anything, it's that you got to start to understand that you count. You're important. You're a very important person. I am learning to like me. I will walk by a mirror in my house today, and I will look and see myself and wink and walk on by because I like the person that I see. I know this person. I am important. I count for something. I am of value. You are important. You really count for something. You are of value. You deserve the best. And the interesting thing about it is God will give us success. And success is being happy at what you do. That's all success is. It's not a certain amount of dollars. It's not a certain kind of job. It's not a certain kind of car. It's being happy at what you do. That's it. Contented with, that's all. Having a happy day today. And man, it's all here for us. It's all here. You know, I'm not some test case, for Christ's sakes. You know, I have babies now. I have a couple of friends who have a lot less sobriety. One has about 10 years, one has about 5. And they've watched me go through all this horse shit, and both of them are in therapy now, and they call me daily, say, I just want to thank you for going through all this horse shit for us, you know. Because we're going to cut 10, 15 years out of this crap, you know. I can't stand them. They're so practical. Ed keeps saying to me, I have no intentions of doing it the way you did it. You know, when I reach 20, I want to be smoking. Not literally, you know, and then I'll tell you what got me on the smoking, and then I'll shut up, and we can all go home. I was researching a project on a heavy smoker, 2.5 packs a day, Marlboro, Camel, whatever I could get my hands on, right? And researching a project on suicide, on teenagers and suicide. I was at suicide prevention, dealing with the people at suicide prevention. And I was sitting at this table, all of them include the director and a lot of the people, and I, whip out my cigarettes and light one up, and they're all sitting at the table and a smoker. And one of them looks at me at the head of it, says, we have an opinion on cigarette smoking. If you're interested, like a jerk, I said, yeah, sure, why? What is it, you know? And he said, well, considering all of the provable, substantiable scientific fact and information that is in now in relation to smoking and cancer, we feel professionally that smoking is covert suicide. It is a little tiny gun with a little tiny bullet. That'll fuck with your smoking, let me tell you. Be a couple of years after that, right? To give them up, but they were a bad 2 years. It was no longer any unconscious lighting of cigarettes. Boy, every now and then I'd look at that sucker in my hand, I go, what am I doing to me, man? You know, what is going on here? And the result is, the more I learn to care about me, the better care I take of me, and nobody else is going to do it. That's the bummer. You know, I mean, God knows I've looked. Jesus, I have looked for her everywhere. Christ. Even went back to Saks today, you know. I got to do it. I got to tell you, I have loved being in Dallas. I've had a really, really good time, and the people have been super, and it's nice to come here and not go to jail, and I just got to tell you, man, and particularly all of you who are young, you know, and there's no difference in any of us, but you count. You're so goddamn important, and if you can get a hold of that little seed right now, you're going to have an incredible life. You're going to find people in AA who are going to be very resistant to what you do. They're going to be resistant to change. One of the tragedies in here is that you can get more support for failure in here than you can success. Okay? And it's not that the people are bad people, it's just that they're scared. It's just that they're afraid. And if you start blossoming out and getting successful, they don't know how to deal with you. And because they're not making changes in their life, they get afraid and they pull back or they try and diminish what you do. But fail and watch them. You'll get a lot of people around you if you fail. You know, lost it all, huh? Everything? You know. Lost that big job, huh? Car? Jesus, that's a shame. That was a nice car, you know. Want to go have coffee? We'll talk about it, you know. Oh, the one point I was going to make, I know, and then it's not, about the thing about our parents is, when people say that, it's really correct. I look at my mother and my father, and it's true. It's absolutely true. They did the very best job they could do with the tools they had. They did to me what was done to them. They did the best job they could with the information they had. They couldn't have done it any better than they did it with the information they had. Okay? Fine. But that's only half of the issue, guys. That's only half. That's this half. This half is they did a rotten fucking job. Okay? Doesn't matter that it was the best they could do, it was still terrible, because as long as I feel that the best job they could do was adequate, then I walk around feeling like I'm the jerk. See? And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm really okay. I should have had love. I should have been held. Man, I gotta tell you, I can be running today. I run in an area in Southern California where 1.5 miles of it is a stretch through a park. And I today, man, will see a father or a mother with a little boy in the park, right, holding him or nurturing him or loving him or kissing him, a 5 or 6 year old little boy, one that's too big to be held, right? Giving him love, man, and the tears will come to my eyes because I can feel the pain from not having had it. I've come to understand one of the reasons I can't let you love me is because it starts to put me in touch with the pain from all the love I didn't get. So I keep you away, see? So that's why, if you wonder sometimes why you go through this kind of maneuvering with somebody who really cares about you, maybe it's just because you're afraid of finding out how rotten it was not having any love. You know, it's very hard for me, but we deserve all the love we can get. God bless you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Caper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.